Hi, it's Roman from Inner Strength, and I am certain that you are going to be moved to the core by the contents of this real powerful talk. I had the good privilege recently of sitting with my friend Melissa and having her share with me how the practice of yoga has been catalytic in drawing her out of the depths of despair. After going through one of life's most unthinkable events, what grief counselors call an out-of-order death, the death of her child. I have had the good privilege of watching her and coaching her on the yoga mat through this process, and inspired by her courage, I asked her for permission. I said, we've got to share this with the community. She agreed, and here we go.
You know, the biggest thing that I think the viewers of these real powerful talks want to know is, you know, how yoga has really helped you on your journey. So in order to get to that point, we have to, we got to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Like what happened? You know, are you willing to tell a story about your journey?
And for me, Roman, this is cathartic because if my experience can help or inspire others, I want to let it, for me and for Layden. What better way can I honor my daughter's story than by letting it help another soul? But yeah, so I did the prenatal yoga here. We knew when I was pregnant that Layden had a heart complication, but it was the same as mine. And so there's a 97% chance survival with that, and we weren't overly, you're concerned, but not, overly worried. Became a Division I athlete and have run marathons, so, when she was born, we were in the hospital, and she surpassed their expectations. She didn't need to have surgery immediately, and we actually, after a couple weeks of observation, we went home. She was born 6 pounds 2 ounces, and so we were home for about a month, and then went back for her scheduled surgery. At that time, there were complications actually with her stomach, her intestines, and long story short, she had 2 heart surgeries, 2 abdominal surgeries, 51 days of her 4-month life she couldn't eat, and 30 of those days she couldn't be held.
Wow.
So we were most of the time in the cardiac ICU of Children's Hospital.
So she lived for 4 months.
She lived for 4 months.
Okay, I thought it was 6 months, but 4 months.
4 months, and she taught me a lot about love. Selfless love. Those times where it would be easier to not be by her bedside with all the beeping, and it was scary, and she was incredibly swollen, and there was not many parts of her that didn't have tubes by the very end, because she was fighting, and she was really defining, the odds at that point, from the complications from her surgery.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, Roman, they called me at work one day. I was at work. We thought we were going home. And I was, shocked. And they told me. And I was there, and I saw it was Children's Hospital. And at this point, it had become so routine.
Yeah.
I was like, I was with somebody else. I said, hold on 1 second. And I answered the phone. And they said, we changed her abdominal dressings today. And it looks like there's more compromised intestinal damage. And so I said, I need to speak to somebody else. And I was like, can we talk about this now? And they're like, no, you need to come back. And that whole car ride was just a blur.
Yeah.
They sat us down and they said, we have seen children overcome this intestinal level of damage, but she'll never eat. And then they said, we're going to have a whole team meeting. And I, at this point, having had been told, she'd be okay, and, things kind of falling apart unexpectedly, you really go into danger mode where you're just you expect danger and you're looking for safety. They sat us down, and, she looked me and Mike right in the eye and said, with this dressing change, it forced us to all talk. And none of us wanted to have this conversation because we love you guys and we love Layden so much, but she has 0% chance of living, and we believe she's beginning to suffer. We could have had this conversation a couple weeks ago, but none of us wanted to because,
The strength.
of her strength. I mean, Layden was, we had a sign that said, she's a 6-pound, 10-ounce ball of fury, over her bed. And she was this little, like, wide-eyed, tiny little thing. But they had her on maximum dosages of morphine and sedatives to keep her still, because at the end, she had tubes going in to regulate, like, all of her circulation. And if she was moving on those, it would really, it could compromise her nervous system now.
Yeah.
And when I would walk in and she would hear my voice, it was an immediate eyes open, squeezing her hands, kicking her feet, scooching her face. And they were like, how is she doing this? Because she's on the maximum dosages we can give a 6-pound baby.
Yeah.
Of her 4 months, the first 3 months, she was relatively healthy. We were home for about a month. So, no tubes or wiring or anything.
Yeah.
And then we were in the hospital. It was not very invasive to very invasive. They said, she won't survive. So at that time, we brought in our reverend. All of our families came and said their farewells. Mike's family flew in. My family drove in.
So when she passed away, I mean, what happened?
We had the option of waiting for it to happen at any moment, which would have been more painful. For her, we chose to, take her off the machines with the doctor's support. This allowed us to hold her one more time.
Yeah.
So it had been about a month since
Yeah.
I had held her. And Mike and I held her together.
In her last moments.
Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget when she took her last breath. I still hear the sound. And it was peaceful. But it's a sound I'll never forget.
Yeah.
At that point, I fell apart a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm beginning to fall apart right now just listening to it. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
So when you say fall apart, I mean, what happened? Did you just break down? I mean, did you feel, where did you go?
I went into the little parent bed space and just cried.
Yeah.
I just fell apart. I just cried. It's all a blur. With her, her father's encouragement, I held her, and he's like, hold her, and I don't know that I would have had the strength at the time to do that.
Yeah.
And I had this part of me that was like self-conscious, thinking, oh, is this strange? And then it just melted away. Like, I don't care.
You just held her right through.
Mm-hmm.
Through it.
Yeah. I feel her like a burning here. That was her spot. That's where she would nuzzle herself. Burning sensation of where her body was and where it should be.
Oh, got it.
I feel that all the time.
How long were you away from the yoga mat?
I was away from the yoga mat for a while.
A year, 2 years?
I think it was about 6 months before the first time I came back. When I started with Inner Strength, I was living in Watertown, and at this point, we weren't, So I think part of it might have been the comfort of the connection, of having done prenatal yoga there, and having been there with Layden. I think part of it was my belief of the benefits and power of yoga. And, I often say when Layden died, I went on like a seemingly endless quest to find a fix. Like, well, what's going to fix me? I talk fight or flight a lot. Like, I was fighting with grief. I traveled out of the country to hear a world-renowned grief counselor speak, actually at a yoga place as well, because I just needed someone to tell me what the cure was going to be so I could do it. I thought, well, maybe yoga will be the cure. And I almost had to, the difficulty when I first came back to my mat was overwhelming.
I think I remember your first day back. Was that, or at least one of the first days that you came back?
You were my teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. I picked your class.
I applauded you, and I
Yeah.
looked at you. I was like, "Welcome home,
Yeah.
welcome back," or something like
Yeah.
that, you know. And I was moved by your strength. I mean, what has it done for you?
Yeah.
Because you read about it all the time. You read about
Yeah.
how yoga can be healing, but I mean, it doesn't tell us how it works,
Yeah.
which is kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's doing something for you. You've come back to the yoga mat.
Yeah.
You've really completely metamorphosed. Your physical body has
Yeah.
changed. To be able to sit with me
Yeah.
and talk about and the strength that you have and the smile on your face when you right there it is, right there when you're speaking of her, to be able to go to that place now.
Yeah.
I mean, how has yoga really helped?
It's been a process. I think that's the easiest way I can explain it.
Yeah.
And, grief is probably, and I think often when it's out of order death, so, one that's not supposed to happen
Yeah, out
in
of
that
order.
is probably one of the most intense manifestations of a challenge. So, people are going through challenges all the time.
Yeah.
But when you're in the extreme version of it, you can see things at the extreme level. And what grief does is it really takes like all of your emotions, all of your crap, all of your idiosyncrasies, everything. It brings them right up to the surface. And for me, when I first got back to my mat, it was almost just acknowledging that they were there.
Yeah.
Because I found myself becoming very emotional. My first few classes, I cried. You probably didn't know it, but maybe you did. When I say it's a process, my first time on the mat, my next time was probably 2 weeks later, and then maybe a month later. So it took me a while to be able to come back consistently because I knew coming back was going to be confronting those emotions within myself.
How important is the confronting of the emotions?
It's absolutely necessary.
So you've done a lot of research with world-renowned psychiatrists, psychologists, specialists on grief.
Yes.
Now, grief from a small little loss, maybe a loss of your job, to a loss of life, because it's all the same, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'd like to say there's no hierarchy in it, and it is, everyone's experience is their experience, but like I said, I was on a quest for a solution. I did,
The secret sauce.
Yeah. Parent grief groups. I went to grief counseling. I traveled to see a grief speaker out of the country multiple times, actually. Read books on grief, whatever it might have been. But yoga was really when I realized it was an internal journey. It was my process and my journey. And it's funny you bring up when you said the first breath and the last breath, because to me that's a significant part of where I was and where I've come to. I remember the first time I heard you say that in a class. Might have been one of the first few that I was back. And I knew that you had like an extra eye on me. I think a couple times you like checked in to make sure I was okay. Which I think knowing that support was there gave me the strength to come back, which I think highlights the importance of compassion, right? And we as humans need to kind of take care of each other and look out for each other, even if it's just a small little like, hey, you okay? Yeah. The power of that. But I remember you were standing on what used to be the forest wall, over on that side of the wall when you first said it, and it struck me. And I didn't feel grateful at that moment for her last breath, but it struck me. It didn't upset me at all, and I sat on it. And I do now, at this point from where I am. I wish I was never in a position, to have heard it already. But hearing her last breath and knowing that she was loved in her parents' arms and experiencing that, like, I am grateful.
You're sort of qualified now to talk about this, right?
Yeah.
In an interesting way. Is there anything that you can tell someone who is going through a difficult time, not necessarily with this level, but sometimes we lose our cool, we lose our compassion, we lose our strength over the smallest little things. What type of advice or point of view can you offer these, the people watching this video?
So, there are a few different, lessons that I've learned from Layden or from this experience. And I always preface it with, I wish I haven't learned them, but I have.
Yeah, of course.
So what choice do you have? I think anyone going through adversity or facing challenges, really stepping back and deciding what choice do you have? So I had the choice to, continue to feel sorry for yourself, which is a really easy thing to do when you lose your child. To ask why me, to not take care of myself, to fall apart, essentially. That was a choice I had. I was broken. So I could stay broken, or I had the option to choose to rebuild and to, in my brokenness, really assess what was most important to me, right? Because when you're broken, you don't have the capacity to take on a whole lot. So you really have the opportunity to prioritize what matters to you in life. And then when you rebuild, focus all your efforts there. So in rebuilding, when I was completely shattered, it's, what matters to me. It's my family, it's taking care of myself, and it's living my life in a way that carries Layden's light. And I see that as an opportunity now.
And I'm sure there are many ways to do that.
Yeah.
You're a reverent woman.
Yeah.
You're, in a deep, meaningful relationship.
Yeah.
You're a professional.
Yeah. I'm a yogi.
And you're a yogi.
Yes.
And you think that yoga has really been instrumental in helping you with those suggestions of becoming whole again, taking care of yourself, helping you to align with the divine or align with what's most important to you, which is family?
It's been huge. In so many different ways, and for everyone, the experiences will be different. But for me, developing mindfulness is probably one of the most powerful things, because when you're broken, right? So I just talked about assessing what's most important to you. Well, if you're not mindful, you can't do that. If you're not mindful, you just kind of run through the motions, like looking to survive. But I surrendered to yoga, and I surrendered to grief. And by surrendering to yoga, I mean, like, I'm not stronger than yoga. I can't power through the poses. I almost had to start from the bottom again. And someone who came in here, starting yoga for the fitness and more powering through the poses, coming back, just like I surrendered to grief and was shattered, I came back and surrendered to yoga and realized how much I didn't know. And in learning my mindfulness, or developing my mindfulness, I was able to recognize when I could be resilient, when it's like, okay, Melissa, push through this, and when I had to surrender. And I did that on my mat, and I did that in my grieving process. Like, when do I just need to lay in bed and be alone? When do I need to do things for Layden?
So here we are, X amount of years later.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times a week are you practicing yoga?
I shoot for 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
On a great week, I can hit 5 or 6. Usually never less than 3. And, that started pretty consistently, I would say, maybe June of this past year.
Yeah, I've noticed that a big difference.
Yeah.
So for those that are viewing these real powerful talks, they're watching, and they're watching all the way up into this point in this video for a reason.
Yeah.
Your story is compelling. You and I have been talking about doing the teacher training.
Yeah.
I think you're going to do it, right?
Yep, I'm in.
And what is it about it that is compelling you enough to spend all that money and all that time to organize it, because it's a fair amount of time?
Yeah.
What do you really want to get from it? And how do you want to utilize, what inner strength can offer you, like what I can offer you in Lauren Starr, the material? Yeah.
Well, I think it's a multifaceted answer in terms of, personally, I'm going to deepen my relationship with myself. I'm excited about that. I feel ready for that.
Well, the immersion is going to give you that. The immersion, you're going to have time for Melissa. And not just an hour before you go to work, which is different.
Right. When we talk about the process, when I first started coming back, it was hard for me to get here. Now, I can't wait to get here. And to me, that just shows such a journey. But for me to have the opportunity to deepen my own self-awareness even further, of my yoga practice, of what my mind and my body are telling me they need, is a huge, draw. I think that's a unique opportunity. And then on another front, being able to teach this practice that I've become so passionate about, and that I truly believe in its ability to heal and to inspire. know, if I can be a source through my story, like I said, I don't want this story. I never wanted it. But what choice do I have?
Yeah.
So if my story can help another person, inspire somebody, comfort somebody, challenge somebody, like, well, and that's a gift. That's a gift from Layden.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, I'm honored to be able to carry forward.
What an incredibly inspiring story. Melissa, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your courage. You are an inspiration. To be able to go through one of life's most unthinkable events, to come out on the other side with a smile, to be able to put what happened into perspective, to be able to pull up your bootstraps and now move forward after the loss of your child, Layden Sage. Now, I know it's not over for you, because you've shared with me that, you know, there's still moments of deep doubt and despair, but you are well on your way. Now, it's my sincere hopes that the viewer of this Real Powerful Talk is going to be able to take our little challenges in life, the traffic jams, having to get the kids to school, the arguments or discussion with the significant other, the birthdays with a 0 or a 5 on it, whatever it is that makes you cringe. I hope that you can look and put your problems and challenges in perspective, that they're not problems, that they're opportunities to become more. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw in this video, you are really going to love what I have to offer in our 4 Pillars of Freedom yoga teacher and personal development program. Now, although you might not want to teach, this process is a process of helping to really sculpt the person you are, to help with your alignment, aligning you with your purpose in this world and keeping you aligned, giving you an emotional fitness, a spiritual connectedness to your creator, to yourself, your intimate connection with your being, and the power that it takes to get up every day, not by will, but by what the yogis called a Shakti. It's a deep internal, like an enthusiasm for life, an appreciation for life. And I really hope you get a chance to take our program. We've got one starting February 10th. Either way, my team and I cannot be more grateful for everything that you do to make Inner Strength Studios stand out from the rest. So this is Roman Szpond saying thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy day to view this Real Powerful Talk. And I very much look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, take care.